Clerk, claim filed against the city. 4L, City Clerk, redevelopment liquor license request, Bowerman's on 8th Bakery and Cafe. 4M, Finance, April financial reports. 4N, Finance, fiscal year 2022 year-end budget amendments. 4O, Public Safety Services, service maintenance agreement with Great Lakes Upfitting. 4P, Public Safety Services, memorandum of understanding with Ottawa County Community Mental Health. 4Q, Management Administrative Services, revocable license agreement, 18 East 8th Street, projecting sign. 4R, Management Administrative Services, revocable license agreement, 20 East 8th Street, projecting sign. 4S, Management Administrative Services, Human Resources, fiscal year 2023 non-union wage adjustment proposal.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone in the audience who would like an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none, is there any member of council who would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Not seeing any there either. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the consent agenda?
Move we adopt consent agenda.
Moved by Byrd. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Byrd,
Yes.
Peters, Corbin, Coronado,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 5, public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address council. In all of our meetings under the Open Meetings Act of the State of Michigan, we provide an opportunity for public comment. This is one-way communication. It's an opportunity for you to speak to us. We don't answer questions at this time. We don't engage in discussion at this time. And we do limit each speaker to 5 minutes. There are 3 lights on the dais in front of me. There's a red light, a yellow light, and a green light. Green light means you're doing well on time. Yellow light means you have 1 minute left. And red light means that your time has expired, and we are strict about that, so we will let you know when that is done as well. If there's anyone who would like to address council at this time, please step forward, and please state your name and the municipality that you live in for the record. Is there anyone who would like to address council at this time?
Good evening, councilmen and council ladies. Ann Henriksen from Zealand. I just thought possibly you would like to hear what Pride Month is bringing to our community. I'm very interested, and it stems from your ordinance and from the declaration of the mayor. So one of the most important assets to our community are our children. And this is not just an event for a month. This is now becoming more than an infringement or something that people don't want to be involved with. If you notice, the downtown area is not displaying rainbow flags. And this is because the principal shopping district has decided that there will be no flags. And that accommodates our community, accommodates all people, so that it is your job as the administrators of this community, the lawmakers, to make sure that everyone has a peaceful life and that they are able to express themselves appropriately and equally. So that's what the primary shopping district people made a decision. We're just not going to cause a ruckus, even though it is Pride Month. And industries like Disney and Starbucks and Target has made a decision to accentuate this month in accommodation with the idea that they will actually be able to sell their products better if they accommodate it. Well, I went shopping at Target, and I also went to the public library. Our assets are our children, and it's more than an infringement. Now it is an ideology indoctrination, and you have a DEI in your schools. D, it appears to be, has been dropped, so we have an EI, and now where does that go? Ottawa County Health Department issued, and then it was taken down quickly, something from Planned Parenthood. And this is how, from birth on, children should be sex educated. And we do have sex education in our classrooms. I was a sixth grade teacher, and I happened to be instrumental in getting sex education into our schools in New York, in the little town I was in. So, I do care about this. This is supposedly health. So, August 17th, 2021, the first time that Pride Month was accentuated by the Declaration, we had in the Sentinel health education, health, under back page, queer health education could save lives. And what this is, I'm not going to read it because it's pretty explicit. But what it said is that children need to know how to function sexually in the same-sex or heterosexual ways, and how damaging it is to kids if they don't know this. I went to the library. I was alerted that this book might be there, Gender Queer. And it's a cartoon, it's a memoir about a young lady. Basically, when you get through with it, you should check it out. It's very explicit. And if you go on the internet, it says if you're going to use the internet in the library, any sexual explicit or pornography, you will be prosecuted. But this book's in the library. Talks about a young lady who doesn't know who she is. She doesn't have parenting, but explicit beyond this is her first physical exam as an adult woman, and how she felt about it and what trauma it brought to her. The end of the book is she doesn't know who she is. She makes up her own pronouns. She's very confused. Her parents don't care. I mean, they love her, but they don't care. So back to Target. This is called Dobson. This is about a second grade reading material. It's about how a child can, with parental guidance, become the opposite sex of the gender. The other one is Bye Bye Binary, little book for babies. Parents to say, you don't have to have a gender for your baby. It's a new generation, folks. And the ordinance is right in line with it. Pride Month is right in line with it. It's popular, it's culture, but I gotta tell you, your ordinance, you're gonna have to think it through. Is this really what you're wanting
Mr. Mayor,
your
that's 5
laws
minutes.
to be?
I'm sorry, your time has expired. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Sure. My municipality is the city of Holland. My name is Doug Zylstra, and I live at 152 East 24th Street, and I'm also the county commissioner for the city of Holland. So I'm going to give a couple updates from the county. First one around COVID. I mean, we've had a recent wave. I think we have some good news on that. Weekly case counts decreased from 436 2 weeks ago to 396 last week. Cases among children decreased from 55 2 weeks ago to 40 last week. Ottawa remains in the low CDC community level. Ottawa area and regional hospitals have adequate capacity. In Ottawa County, 3% of all available beds and 0% of all ICU beds are occupied by COVID-19 patients. Yesterday, the board approved the 2022 millage rates. For the upcoming fiscal year, the rate is 5.3984, which is 0.1702 lower than 2021. I know that doesn't sound a lot, but it is a reduction in millage rates. With that, the board is comfortable that we'll be able to adequately fund increased budget requests for the new year, just because of the overall growth within the county, right? So, Art Trust. Art Trust is something that we've been working on for the last 5 or 6 years. It's collaboration with the Holland Area Arts Council. We have submitted about 100 art pieces from Ottawa area artists, and there will be an exhibition, an opening with the juried pieces on June 21 at 4 p.m. at Fillmore. So we're really excited about the Art Trust. It's a great way to invest in artists in Ottawa County, and we accept donations at myottawa.org/Art Trust. ARPA funding. So the county is working to secure contracts with identified nonprofit partners who will be responsible for soliciting eligible projects for consideration of the county's ARPA funding. I think last time I talked to you about 5 buckets. So we're looking at 3 fund managers. Those fund managers will be focused on affordable housing, human and social service needs, as well as business stabilization. In the next 2 weeks, we will get contracts hopefully signed with those partners. And once we get those partner contracts signed, we will begin soliciting qualifying projects from the Ottawa community. And our hope is that by the end of the year, we'll have at least the first round of projects funded. So that's exciting. And Family Justice Center groundbreaking. Ottawa County broke ground last week on the 56,000 square foot Ottawa County Family Justice Center. This new facility will be at the Fillmore Complex, bringing all the departments of the 20th Circuit Court under one roof at the West Ottawa campus. This will include family court, probate court, friend of the court, and other related offices, provide coordinated and centralized services to residents. That is my update. If you have any questions, please reach out at dsylstra@myauto.org. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Yes, please come forward, and please state your name and municipality for the record.
Greg King, City of Wyoming, but here in a capacity for Lakeshore Advantage, Senior Business Solutions Manager. Here in support of something that's on the agenda, but I wanted to introduce someone new on our team. You've probably seen me whispering to him. Mason Krall is our newest Business Solutions Manager. So I told him that we'd be sharing the 5 minutes, so he should not speak the whole time, but I wanted to invite him to come up and say a few words, introduce himself to you guys. He will be doing some of these tax abatement hearings with me, or you'll be seeing him a little bit more often and me a little less often. So we're going to be splitting some responsibilities. So Mason.
Hi everyone, I'm Mason Krall. I'm the newest Business Solutions Manager at Lakeshore Advantage. I'm going to be Greg 2.0, so I'm sure I'll get to meet all of you, over my long career, hopefully. So some of you I've met. It's good to see you again, and I look forward to seeing you all in the future.
Great, thank you. And could you please state your municipality for the record?
Sorry, Mason Krall from Zealand.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Next item on the agenda, item 7A, speculative tax abatement, PA 198 speculative tax abatement for Lakeshore Industrial Properties LLC at 1285 Waverly Road. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Greg beat me to the punch a little bit there, but so this is the third time. I was thinking it was the second, but this is actually the third time that we've gone through this process, which I guess we can't call it new anymore, where we're using this process of a speculative PA 198. I'll let Greg answer any questions if you need a reminder of what that is. But basically, you have a situation here where you have a property owner that has is building, or in this case is almost completed, a building that has different suites within it, that then is looking for tenants. So this is the first step in a potential 2-step process where that tenant then could come back and really finalize the 198 tax abatement that you're much more familiar with, that we've been having a lot lately. So with this tonight, we already heard from Mason, but I think Greg King and Randy Price, who's the owner, in this case of the LLC Lakeshore Industrial Properties, can tell you more about this particular project and answer any questions that you might have. So welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome back.
Back at the mic so soon. So I'm going to let Randy really speak to the details of the project. Again, third speculative one. Again, the first one was at 105 Veterans Drive last summer, and then this past December at 72 West 64th Street. So a lot of stuff going on the south side of Holland in particular. Randy's going to talk to you. It's a $4.9 million building, 80,000 square feet, 5 units. So we've got some, I think this is the third and what will be many speculative tax abatements to come. There's a lot of interest in this tool for developers, and happy to work with Randy. So Randy Price, I'll let you take it over from here.
Well, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, so I've created a couple photographs for you. Pass them around if we could. Again, my name is Randy Price. Thank you, Greg, for the introduction. It's been quite a while since I've been here, but we were here many years ago when we started the Kensington Place development, which has been a 20-year labor of love. And we're finally getting to the end of the big phase one of that. I've been a Holland, Zeeland resident now for about 25 years, active in the community and the business community on several fronts in the restaurant business, as well as real estate development, Ottawa County Sheriff's Department for 8 years, Marine, and so on and so forth. So, but this particular property we've owned and held in the family for over 20 years. It was originally Hamilton Machine and Mold. That building on the corner has been sold. This was the remainder property, the 14 acres that surrounds that, and it's been fallow land that we've been growing soybeans on for quite a long time now. So I've always recognized that Waverly Road and I-196 exit and that interchange of M40 down there as being Holland's southern gateway. And as such, I wanted to build something that you and I could both be proud of, a building that would represent the quality to the city and the residents, and I think we're accomplishing that, and I hope that when we get this building built, as you drive by it, you'll be proud of it as well, and take as much pride in it as I do and my family does. We've made accommodations in the site plan for two 80,000 square foot buildings. This is number one of two. Lakeshore Industrial Properties, by the way, is just a holding company that was established for the purpose of this development. This program that we're talking about tonight, the tax abatement program, is critical to new construction projects right now in particular, with rising costs, cost increases, rent increases. We're competing for tenants all over the country. I talked to my steel vendor yesterday, and if I ordered another steel package like the one that you see in front of you in that drawing, if I order that steel package today, and this package was ordered last September, the new package will be 43% up from what I paid last September for this package. So it is critical that programs like this are available to attract people to the City of Holland and to continue to provide growth in our job base and our tax base as well. We're working with a potential tenant that is a startup company called Quint, and Quint's an exciting new office furniture manufacturer that has a new slant on a business plan in that industry. And this, I think, securing approval this evening for this program will be critical, the last critical piece, hopefully, and them signing a lease for two of the suites up to 32,000 feet in this building. If this program is in place in the future and we have the remaining 48,000 square feet available, I think it definitely goes a long way in saying welcome to Holland to people that come in and want to view this new building and occupy this space. So we would appreciate the opportunity to take advantage of this program, and I ask for your approval in doing so. If I could answer any questions, I'd be happy to.
Great, thank you. Any questions from council for the applicant or for staff? I think you may have explained it really well. Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
We do need to do a public hearing on this item. So if there's any member of the public who would like to address council in regard to this item in particular, the rules are very similar to that in the regular public comment period. It is limited to 5 minutes, and it is limited to just this item. So I'll open that public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to address council in regard to this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of council in regard to this item?
Move that we approve the speculative tax abatement. I'm sorry, is that right? Are we on that one?
Yes, that
Yes,
is the
yes,
item
yes,
that we're
yes.
on, yes.
That just didn't sound right. Speculative tax abatement for PA 198 for Lakeshore Industrial Properties, LLC.
Moved by Aaron Source. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado. Any discussion by council? I just wanted to thank Lakeshore Advantage and be the applicant. You're taking a risk with you're doing a big project like this. I think this is a great tool. Greg, I'm glad that you said that it was last summer that we did the first one. My recollection was we've done a number of these over the last couple of months, but it's been a year. But to do 3 of these within a year shows that this is a great tool and a very popular tool for developers that are out there. We hope that this works out well. We know that this is the first step in that process, that the tenants need to be able to do that as well. But thank you for doing that, and it's a beautiful looking building, and we hope that it's very successful. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Peters? Yes. Corbin?
Yes.
Coronado?
Yes.
Arnsorst?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 9, written petitions and communications. In addition to providing the public the opportunity to speak to us directly at our meetings during public comment, we do also have an email address that we've set up so that folks can communicate with us through that. It is publiccomment@cityofholland.com. That's publiccomment@cityofholland.com. When we do receive those, council reviews them, and then we accept them into the record. We don't read them out loud, but they do become part of the public record. Next item on the agenda, item 12E 4.1, approval of fiscal year 2022-2023 insurance program. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Do apologize, first of all, there was some added information that we kind of kept adding to the packet here, but that really speaks to the process that we always do with these renewals, sometimes you're just always waiting for last information as we're going out to the market and getting these secured. I'm going to introduce you in a moment, of course, to Lynn McCammon, who you're really familiar with, and also just want to extend my thanks to the Board of Public Works team, Dave Koster and Chuck Warren in particular, as this is another one of those programs where we work very closely together in securing insurance programs for both of our entities. And while we continue to take a look at making sure that that partnership gets us the best rates and the best coverage possible, up until this point, and I would suspect moving into the future, that partnership does absolutely do that exact thing. Also with us tonight is Jody DeVries, who is the managing director here, I think in the Grand Rapids, West Michigan market for Marsh. And you'll recall that last year this time, we hinted at, and then in the meantime, we have secured a new agent to help us in this work. So this is the first time that Marsh has helped us with taking a look at our programs, first of all, but then also taking this out to the market for reaction and for bids. Lynn and Jody will walk you through the information that you've also had in your packet. But one thing I just want to stress is thanks to the entire team that did this work, but also our ongoing commitment to make sure, I think especially after we've done this one time all the way through with Marsh, that we have an intention to continue to kind of go back now and say, okay, do we think our programs still are the right programs? And are we doing everything, possibly with changing some levels of coverage or those types of things? You'll see in some of the recommendations tonight, we're not really recommending making changes in that. And yet I think that's something that we'll continue to do on an ongoing basis. And I've talked enough, so I'm going to ask Lynn and then Jody also to come up momentarily after that.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Thank you, Keith, for the introduction. Yes, this evening we're here to talk about the renewal for the insurance program for the combined City and Holland Board of Public Works for fiscal year 2023. So that begins on July 1st. As Keith mentioned, we have a new agent of record, Marsh, and right after we selected them in February, we really started working on this program. So there's a lot of work that goes on to getting to where we are, and even though it came up to the last end, we've been working at it through the whole time. Some of the things we did this year to try to improve the outcome is we were much more proactive in having interviews and informational gatherings, working with some of the different companies that might quote it. And we involved members of the police department, for example, because law enforcement liability is an issue. So we had them on the calls too, because we have a lot of things, great things going on there. So we wanted to share those things as well. And Marsh worked along side by side with us on that process. And in a little bit, I'll introduce Jody, have Jody come up and kind of give you just what she's seeing in the market and on her end, because you're going to see, and you heard in the write-up, that once again, it was a little bit of a challenging market, right? So even though the city's doing a lot of great things, we're still a city. So we get lumped in that classification. It makes it challenging, especially you're going to hear for the cyber coverage, for example. So despite the fact that we have a really great IT staff and do a lot of the things that we should be doing, just because we're a city, it's very difficult. There's a lot of cities around the country who are not getting any quotes at all. So, so we're happy to have gotten a quote. It is a little bit more expensive. So before we talk about the marketplace, what it is, I'll go ahead and get to some of the numbers. So the program, as Keith mentioned, is basically the same with just a little bit of differences as it was in prior year. So in the prior year, you may recall, we did go increase our retention, or what we look at like the deductible a little bit, and that's worked out well. We did that after analysis, so that we still want to kind of keep that for level the same this year. So the total premium price for the combined group came in at $1,464,269. And for comparison, that represents an increase of about a little over $200,000 or 14% from the prior year. So the main drivers of those increased dollar-wise are really the liability, both the general liability and the excess liability amounts. Cyber really increased by 89%, which is the largest percentage increase, but fortunately we're still coming in just a little over $50,000 for the city and then $40,000 for the Board of Public Works. So finally, when we're looking at the numbers, we allocate that. So Marsh worked side by side with the city and the Board of Public Works team, and we looked at how to allocate it. We wanted to make sure we had a good basis. And so the city's share of that will be $587,249. And then the Board of Public Works share is $877,020. And just as a reminder, in the packet, there was also some information on the Board of Public Works, their energy generation assets, and those have previously and continue to be evaluated and included in their separate policy just to the unique character of those assets. So that's not included in the $1.4 million. Finally, when we look at the numbers, Marsh assisted with the evaluation of the third-party administrator, and that's like the person who kind of handles all the claims processing. And we currently use a firm called Davies, but we wanted to make sure we are getting the best value, so it's a good practice to look around. So we did get a quote from PMA. The two quotes were presented a little differently, so it made it a little challenging to evaluate, but after looking at the detail, we discovered Davies continues to offer a very competitive rate, and we've had very good experience with the claims process handling. So at this point, we are recommending to continue that relationship with Davies as the third-party administrator. So at this point, and then we'll allow time for questions from both Jody and myself, I would invite Jody to come and just talk a little bit about the market, because she obviously has a lot more information on that.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for selecting Marsh as your new broker for the city and the BPW. It's our pleasure to be working with you. And so I just wanted to add a couple comments to what Lynn said. First, about the condition of the marketplace. For most of you that have probably been on the council for a while, you've seen that over the last couple of years, it's been tougher, and the rates have been going up versus what we saw even maybe 10 years prior. There's really a couple drivers for that. One is kind of what we have going on in our world and society. It's caused that we're seeing more claims activity from municipalities. I would also say on the cyber side, and I'm sure you're hearing a lot about this, but as critical infrastructure assets for the BPW, as well as the city municipal program, you're considered a higher risk. So there's much more stringent underwriting. And to Lynn's point, even though your systems are strong, and I think were reviewed very well, the underwriters consider you to be a higher risk because they perceive you to be a higher target, and therefore are just underwriting a little more stringently and passing through some increases. I would compliment your team, the work and time they invested in meeting with other potential markets, allowed us to get competitive quotes. I think the investments that you've made around public safety and the time that the chief and captain spent with us on underwriting calls was very helpful, and shows the first class operation that you have here. So I want to compliment the team on that effort. And I do think that even though you're seeing increases on the paper, your results were better than they might have been otherwise, right? Without a competitive process and without the time that they spent doing that. So hats off to them for all of the work that they've done on that. So I do think that we'll start to see a leveling out a little bit. I know it's been a couple of years of some increases specifically on the umbrella and the cyber. I do think that'll start to stabilize over the next 1 to 2 years. So I hope that we'll see that leveling out.
Any questions? Yeah, Nikki, go ahead.
Why don't I turn on my microphone? We're very glad you're on board, and I'm sure everybody's vetted you, and we trust Lynn's expertise also. So this went through a competitive process and market analysis, and we did all this. Would you recommend that, in your for a certain number of years, would you recommend that this process be gone through again with looking at other competitors? Again, you stick with one vendor, but it's always, wouldn't you say it's still good to look around every few years? Or
Yeah, are you talking about on the carrier side?
Yes.
Yes. I do think, especially in this market, even if you don't end up making a change, the process of going through a competitive process kind of keeps the incumbent accountable, if you will. So I think that proved to be successful this year, that even though we didn't make a change, we achieved a better result than we might have if we had not undergone a competitive process.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Corbin.
Yeah, so myself and Councilman Hoekstra serve on the Airport Authority, and one thing we've learned through, going through this process to getting insurance for our authority is cyber is difficult to get,
Very
cyber coverage.
difficult.
And so I appreciate that we even have it, because it sounds like many don't. And so a couple questions. One is, what's the alternative if in the future, what's the alternative for cyber coverage if we can't get coverage this way? What can we do to improve our chances of continuing that cyber coverage, one way or the other? And then the last question is warranty on a lot of infrastructure we have is relatively new, especially our energy production facility right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's some warranties on some of those larger pieces of equipment. Is that factored in at all here when it comes to insurance premiums, of the kind of warranties we have for some type of pieces of equipment?
Right, good questions, all good questions. Let me answer in reverse. So the warranty on equipment at like the Holland Energy Park, the warranty is first line of defense, if you will, before pursuing a claim with the carrier. So we would always, the underwriter is always going to be looking to pursue the warranty relief prior to filing a claim. With regard to cyber, I agree with you that it's been a challenge, and to Lynn's point, we do know, I have clients myself that have opted to not purchase cyber coverage because it became either cost prohibitive or they were not offered renewal terms by the carrier. I would say that there's much more of a partnership or cooperative effort between underwriters now and their clients. Our carrier, for example, Coalition, on the cyber program offers free screenings, free resources, and they do kind of their own outside scans to provide feedback to you, because it's in their best interest too that you're working together. I would say they also offer breach response support to talk with you about how you would respond in the event of a breach. And those resources are kind of a post-binding activity that we'll go through with the city and the team. But those resources are free, and we'll take advantage of those for sure.
And if I may add just a bit, actually what she just mentioned, we discovered when we were going through this process that there are not only the cyber provider, but the provider of our liability and our package, for example, has a lot of great resources. A lot of it's training, but it is all free. And so all of those resources we're going to work to make sure we can put into place, at least make sure we disseminate the information to the organization so everybody has an opportunity in their areas to use some of this training, because it will only improve our outcomes in the future. So that's been another good thing from this process, going through and really digging in this year, which is great. And so that will be something that we do hopefully to assist with the cyber renewal next year even.
Any other questions? Yes, Belinda.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Diane, did I get it right?
Jody.
Jody, I'm sorry, I'm not good with names. Anyway, so you said that the more claims from municipalities critical to infrastructures and so a higher risk. So we are higher risk. Is there any way, I know like my vehicle insurance, like if I took a safety course or I did X, Y, and Z, is there anything, I mean, I know the city of Holland, you know, and the team, Keith and Matt, do a great job of being proactive and green and having our own BPW and whatnot. Are there things that can help us to be less high risk if that's at all possible?
Yes, I think that's a good question. So I would just say that the training that the City of Holland does around public safety and the time that the chief and captain spent is the best that I've seen. It's very impressive. It shows very well. It's clear that you've made it a priority and an investment. And I would say, you know, you're first class all the way. And to Lynn's point, the carrier underwriter offers some training to support many of our clients in this space, but you're doing much of that already.
Okay.
So I would say we definitely want to take advantage of the cyber support from the carrier, which we will plan to do. On the property engineering side, we already are using property engineers. So I think you're doing many of the right things, most of the right things. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I could recommend as an improvement. I think what I've learned about you over the last 4 or 5 months is very impressive. So I think it's more of a matter of telling your story, getting the underwriters comfortable with that, getting carriers that are comfortable with your risk over time. And you know, if they have a portfolio of many municipalities and they compare the City of Holland with their other clients, they see the good work that you're doing.
So kind of an example, so, I mean, not to toot our own horn, but if it's gonna benefit us, sure, you know, sharing
Yeah.
our story and what we're
Yeah.
doing, so. Well, I just wanna say thank you to Lynn, Matt, and Keith, and the rest of the team at the City of Holland for all your efforts on, you know, being proactive and saving us money and finding us the best underwriting support, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Great, thank you both, appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Mhm. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the fiscal year 2022-2023 insurance program?
I move to accept, approve a fiscal year 2023 insurance program.
Moved by Coronado, is there support?
Support.
Support by Aaronsource, any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Corbin,
Yes.
Coronado,
Yes.
Aaronshorst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Peters, Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Item 12E 6.1, gifts. Kathy, would you please review the gifts for us?
The city manager's office is pleased to report the following gifts: Parks and Recreation, Sal Perez Youth Scholarship Fund, Hops at 84 East, Community Pizza proceeds donated and reported through cash receipts, $925. Cash receipts reporting dates May 2 through 29, 2022, $102. Parks and Recreation, donation received for a plaque for Barb Appledorn from Jennifer Verhulst, $277. Donation received from Tulip Time Dig Day, held on June 2, 2022, $12,495. Human Relations Department, Youth Services, Build-A-Bag Program. Hayworth Helps, $750. It is recommended that these donations be accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate account, and an expression of gratitude be forwarded to said donors.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the gifts?
Move to accept said gifts and token of our appreciation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Moved by Coronado. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion? I just want to make note of, there's one item on here that all the gifts are great, but $12,495 raised in selling official City of Holland Tulip Time bulbs at $10 a bucket is pretty impressive. I was out there that day. It's a great day, and for anybody who's interested in coming next year, make sure you get there early. We had people that were there well over an hour in advance, staking out their claims. Nobody was allowed to start digging until the horn sounded at 9 a.m., but they were there ready to go. And we had folks showing up at 9:30, 9:45 in the morning, and there was hardly anything left. Absolutely fantastic. Everybody had a great time. What a great spirit out there. So, Kathy, yes, Mr. Byrd.
So we'll have the data for Tulip Time coming shortly. Will that be on there as well? Can that be on there?
What
The tulip dig and how much money it's generated over the course of its life.
We'd have, oh, wow, sorry about that. We'd have to do some digging. I don't know if we've,
Dad joke, great.
You better get there early.
I think the Tulip Time information, Quincy, is I think what I've heard is I think they're going to renew their economic impact study at some point. And I think that's maybe what you're referencing. I'm not exactly sure what
that is it.
timeline it is that they're going to renew that.
Okay.
That's probably not going to come like really quickly.
Right.
And then they
Couple
have
months
their,
down the road.
yeah,
Yep.
it might even be more than that. You know, they have their kind of regular review of books, and it takes time for that to all trickle in.
Understood. I
But-
figured as much, so.
Good.
Yeah. And just to follow up on that, Tulip Time's numbers in terms of their budget, very different than their economic impact. And actually, I had a conversation with Gwen Howard about the possibility of some economic impact numbers this year. And they said anything that they get is not going to be incredibly accurate because they didn't have the people out there doing the surveys that need to be done in order to get good, accurate information. Like, for instance, they weren't people out there asking, how long are you staying? How much are you spending while you're here? How many days are you staying overnight? Those kinds of things that they need to do. But they're looking, I know, in the next several years of doing a full economic impact study again so that they can make sure they've got updated numbers for that.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Yeah, Belinda.
I like to say that's a great way of recycling, reusing, and repurposing, being green. So unfortunately, our underwriter person had left to toot our own horn about that. So good job.
Yeah. Any other comments in regard to the gifts? Seeing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Communications from the city manager. Mr. Van Beek.
So I do have some things tonight, but I'm going to go quick. First, I'm honored. I'm appointed on the Michigan Municipal League board, and I will not be with you next Wednesday. My apologies. They have an annual kind of board and retreat session, so I'm going to be there, but you'll be in the more than capable hands of Mr. Van Dyken next week. Specifically on that study session next week, we have some more UDO recommendations as forwarded on from our Planning Commission. We also have a non-motorized plan that was reviewed and passed on to you from Planning Commission that I think you'll enjoy seeing. If you want to read it early, it's already in the Planning Commission packet, but it will also be in your packet for study session next week. And then Matt, and then we'll kind of hand it off through that. We'll hand it off to Lynn, where we're going to have an update on our fire station projects, because it's not one project, it's projects. And really we'll give, we've talked about it, right? But it's been really kind of high level. We're starting to get to the point where you're going to have a little bit more detailed information about what we're looking to build and renovate, and the dollars that we're talking about, because we're, I'm not going to say we're in a hurry in some ways, but in a little bit, we're in a hurry to get out to the market to borrow the money before the market goes in the wrong direction too much. So we have been pushing pretty hard that we want to get that in place. So you'll get a full update on that next week. And then you also will have in your, you'll have, just because that's the process that we do, your final strategic and business plan report for FY22, which ends on June 30. Couple other things talking about Planning Commission, two big things. One that kind of, I guess, got final approval from the Planning Commission is, you'll remember the Shoreline Flats approval that had a rezoning request that came to you that you did not approve, that involved some rezoning of some northern property in the Heights, northern portion of a larger parcel on 16th Street. They did come back, and as I think they communicated to you, they were going to then shrink back that proposal with allowed really development fitting the zoning that fits on that parcel. So Planning Commission did approve that last night, 196
196.
units. Yeah. And that does not need to come to council. So that did gain that approval last night, so just so you're aware of that. And then also something pretty exciting, and remember, we have this process where we really like to partner with entities that are looking for developments. And part of the reason we have study sessions here, Planning Commission also have study sessions, kind of a more informal way to start conversations. And Hope College came in, where some pretty exciting plans that they've been working on and are really getting to the point where they wanted to get some of that informal feedback from the Planning Commission. But I think you're going to see this moving forward of a college for business and economics, and also some housing, kind of on what we all know as the Versandow property, right? The 8th to 9th and just west of Columbia properties. So that is moving forward too, and that's a pretty big deal, right? Mm-hmm. So that started with Planning Commission, so know that that will continue at that level, but stay tuned. And that was also in the Planning Commission packet. So that's out there for everyone to see, but also encourage you, if you have an interest, to go and look at that. Final thing that I have is, it seems like summers are when turnover sometimes happens. And we're definitely experiencing that right now, primarily through retirements, a couple resignations of people just having good opportunities in other places. But just, you're going to see some new faces. But the encouraging thing that I think that we found through all of this, certainly in the Human Resources Department, but also in the various hiring departments, is that we just continue to get very good quality applicants for the positions that we have available. And while I think we all take a pause sometimes when we see longtime fantastic members of our city family move on, and you kind of, you take a pause and go, man, how are we going to move on from this? It's just really encouraging that we continue to get people that want to come and work here. So not that I send notes, right, because you'd get notes all the time about some of the turnover that we have, but just as a general overview, just I think that's been a real positive sign for us and something I wanted to share when I had a second. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I have a number of items this evening. First is mayoral reappointments to the boards and commissions, and these are all reappointments. I'm recommending to City Council to approve the reappointments of Dr. Sue Franz to the Holland Board of Public Works Board of Directors, term to expire June 30, 2027. John Crawford and Josh Hauk to the Neighborhood Improvement Committee with their terms to expire June 30, 2025. Matthew Weirmeyer and Michelle Slickers to the Human Relations Commission with their terms to expire June 30, 2025. Luis Lozano and Brooke Anderson to the Planning Commission with their terms to expire June 30, 2025. Paul Ketterberg to the Compensation Commission with a term to expire June 30, 2028. And John Shea, Jean-Pierre Fowler Sr., and Mark Cook to the Historic District Commission with terms to expire on June 30, 2025. And I put that forward to the council for a motion for approval. Moved by Byrd, is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado. Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll? Oh, we can do a voice vote on that one. Let's do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, I'm a little sad and a little excited about at the same time. And this is the appointment of the city attorney. And it's my recommendation that the city council appoint Vincent L. Duckworth as the city attorney with an effective date to commence on July 1, 2022 for a term of 2 years, and to adopt the proposed rates for legal services charged to the Holland City and the Holland Board of Public Works. This comes, Ron, you've served us for 41 years as assistant city attorney and city attorney. I've known you for probably 20 of those years, going way back to days of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I have always appreciated your candor, your acumen, your ability to explain things in a way that even a guy like me can understand. Really, really appreciate that. Know that you're moving on to a new season of life. And very excited, Vince, to have you come and join us at the dais as well. Vince, you've been with us for years as assistant city attorney, and I'm very excited about that as well. And I know, Mr. Van Beek, I think you had a few comments you wanted to make in this regard as well, and I'll entertain that at this point, and then I'll open it up to council members.
You know, I appreciate that. I get a shot at it before Ron does, and I think you covered it very well, Mayor. Ron has been of great service to the city and the community, but I will say he's not going away either. He's made that perfectly clear that he's not going from 110 to 0 or anything like that. He shouldn't speed in that Jeep of his anyway. But he's still going to be around. But we had conversations certainly with Dave Koster also, and feel that probably at best to officially recognize Vince in this role. So we're certainly going to miss Ron, and yet I just definitely want to underscore that Ron's still going to be very much, I'm not even going to say in the background, he's going to be easily reached and be able to rely on his wisdom and his lots of experience that he has in very specific city things, which we very much appreciated. So this is a change, and it's bittersweet, and yet we know also that Vince has proven himself over years too. Lots of work, specifically probably initially with the police department in city prosecution ordinance work, but also has done a lot, as described in the memo, with FOIA. He's a member of one of my favorite organizations with the acronym MAMA. I mean, how can you not love an organization, the Municipal Attorneys Association? So I think Vince will do a great job, but we certainly want to recognize, and I think what we'll probably do is we'll call Ron back maybe when he's not protected beyond the dais. We'll organize it with his BW3 Wednesday night that he always likes to participate in, and have him come back and more formally recognize him also. But Ron, Thank you, and Vince, welcome.
Yeah, don't lean in yet, Ron, because I want to give other council members an opportunity. First, I'm going to make you sit through that before you get an opportunity. Anyone else have any comments in regard to this?
Not much
Get-
that we can add to those.
Yeah. And Dave?
Do we have a motion on the floor at this point?
We do not have a motion on the floor at this point. Would you like to make a motion in
make
that
that.
regard, and then we'll do discussion on that motion?
Yes, I'll make that.
All right, we'll stay with parliamentary procedure since we're dealing with the city attorney.
Support.
Moved by Hoekstra. There is support. Any discussion? Mr. Hoekstra.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a couple of thoughts or musings, or I'm not sure what form this will come out in. I want to preface whatever I say, though, by assuring everyone that none of this is intended to be a commentary on the level of service that we've received from the attorney's office over the years, or the folks charged with providing those services, which would be you guys, right? So don't get nervous while I'm talking here, okay? Just relax. What I want to speak to, I guess, is more process, or the process that we're following here, or attempting to, in securing this very, very vital service for the city. I don't know how many times a situation has come before this board where we've said that it's prudent and good practice for us to periodically look at what we do or who we're using to do stuff, different things, to evaluate, you know, whether we're getting good value from our investment in those things, whether there might be something out there that we're not aware of. Our discussion on the insurance package of this evening is a prime example of that. And understanding that there are differences in procuring goods and services, and there are nuances to both of those things. I began to think a little bit about this, and frankly, had to go to one of my prior colleagues who has longer tenure on this board than I had, about the last time that we actually did that. And the best that we could come up with, I think it was during the Dykstra regime, maybe when you were first being considered for the position. I'm not quite sure on that. But it was at that time when we took a look at, we may have set out an RFP, I'm not sure. I think we did. We, at the very least, took the time as a council to discuss this appointment. In fact, I think we went into a closed session, which we were allowed to do because it's an employment matter, I guess. To have some back and forth between us about how we felt about the level of service, if this was the direction we wanted to go, or not. So, thinking about that, I guess I have questions about how we're arriving at this now. I'm not sure what the relationship of the cart and the horse is right now on this particular matter, where we are with that, but the mayor is allowed to make this appointment with the advice and consent of council. And I guess I want to be sure, and I'm asking the question for us all to think about, have we exercised that advice and consent option in this instance? Personally, I would question that. And again, we may go through that exercise and very much find out that, you know, our current providers for this service are the best there is. There may not be anyone else there crazy enough to do it. I don't know. But we don't know that at this point. So I guess I want to make the point that there is a process that we could follow and probably should follow in order to make it, to ensure that it's a good process. And where we wind up as a result of that, you know, we wind up there. And it could be at this very spot, as I said. But I want to make that point because it's easy to forget those things, you know, as we go through what we do and we can come to conclusions and make assumptions about things which may or may not be true. But we should at least be aware of the process of coming to those conclusions, because we owe it to the taxpayers, we owe it to the people that we represent to give them the best bang for the buck. And by doing that process, they would be able to see, I believe, if they're paying attention, that indeed is what we got or would get. So I'm not making any changes to the motion at all at this point. My guess is we'll go along here if we proceed down this road, and life will be cool. But I wanted to make that point so that we're all aware of it. Thank you.
Yep, and thanks, David. And I guess for clarification for everyone up here, there's a motion on the floor that's been seconded, and if council was inclined to follow the process that you suggested, I think that the path that council would take would be to vote down the motion, which would mean not confirm the appointment that was made by the mayor, and then look at going through a process like that. So that's just I guess a point of clarification for folks.
Either that or move to postpone and same outcome.
Yep. Yes, Mr. Peters.
David, thank you for bringing that up. I stumbled over is this an ordinance that we're filling? I mean, what is it by which we have the authority to hire people? Is this an ordinance?
I believe it's section 6.3 of the Holland City Charter authorizes the mayor to make the appointment of a city attorney with the advice and consent of city council.
Okay. So it's a charter thing.
Charter.
Thank you. Advice and consent. I really appreciate Dave's comments about everybody sitting in the room and everything's been said about this. I was a little surprised at how fast we're celebrating before we even had a vote. This consent thing, advice, used to come in a very regular standard. Before we took Ron on, we had a long conversation when Andy Mulder left, and that was a closed-door session, treated like an employee. And I think it was hugely valuable to understand, and there's a lot of new people sitting around this dais too. I think they would appreciate a discussion about legal services. They come in many forms. Lots of people can do them. Are we getting the best we can? No reflection on anything, but Dave's comments are bang on. I think we owe it once in a while to step back. We just did it tonight. We do it all the time with almost every other service we do. So I'm a little surprised at the assumption here that we have going here, and I don't mean that with any disrespect to anybody in the room, but I do think this advice thing, the legal opinions are for council, and I do think we have something to say and some assumptions and some discussions we can have to make sure we feel comfortable. And like I say, there's new people around the room that maybe don't even realize that's an important part of what we do. So, thank you.
Any other comment? Sorry, Mike. Any other comments? Coronado.
I just want to say thank you, being a new person. So Dave, thank you. And I want to say that I appreciate it being new. There's no formal book. I'm learning as I go. But not just being an ordinary layperson. I have some experience working with Vince at the prosecutor's office, being the city prosecutor. So I know his background. But again, Dave and Jay Peters both raise a good point that there are newbies. And at least for the procedure, learning point, whatnot, you know, I think Vince is a sure in, but I don't know any different. And again, no disparaging anything. It's just I don't know. And so for me, postponing this and going through the procedure for services and goods would be a good practice. And again, to know the procedure and to show our constituents, that those that want to be involved, that they have an opportunity to learn. So, thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Van Beek.
Yeah.
Before that, please.
You want to?
Council, we're in discussion with council before we.
All right.
It's fine.
Yep. Mr. Corbin.
I just want to bring some things to bear. Maybe that'll help your discussion. So.
And maybe I'm going to ask the questions of you so you can clarify, maybe of you and Ron. But I do believe 2 years ago, maybe, roughly, we have a service contract or a contract for attorney services. And that contract spells out specifically what the terms are between us and council. And we have had we had deliberations regarding that contract. So I guess I want to clarify, in the contract, it states that you'll provide legal service to us, but our obligation then under charter is to appoint an attorney as the primary attorney to the council. That's how I understand it to be, but, I mean, if you could clarify any of that, that would be very helpful. Because that process is very important. I respect that to the two gentlemen who's brought it forward. I think it's very important for us to understand that.
Yeah, the city charter provides, as we've indicated, that the mayor is to appoint a city attorney, and that's with the advice and consent of council. And our office, has provided legal services to the city, and for the last several years, I've been the appointed city attorney for that.
So just to follow up, how is that written into our contract agreement? I don't have it before me.
It's not a contract, it's an appointment.
An appointment, but we do have a service agreement, a legal service agreement with your firm, correct?
No, it's just an appointment. I'm an appointed
Just an
official
appointment.
of the city.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. But we do summarize terms in the letter, such as what's attached to the mayor's report each time before the appointment, addressing the terms the next few years, 2 years. It's a 2-year appointment.
Okay. Any other council members? Otherwise, Mr. Van Beek?
Yeah, and maybe to add to your conversation and maybe this, so a few things. One, in a way, when you did the insurance tonight, I would say that there actually was kind of two things that have recently happened in insurance. One, annually we go out to market and we do the underwriting, so we update our bids. And that's probably what you're most used to, and that we do, where we have a purchasing ordinance that says when you're buying most goods or services, that goes through a purchasing process, and that's done on a regular routine basis. What we did additionally, though, and I would say that part is more like attorney services, is there's professional services, of which city attorney services are absolutely a professional service, which is not on a regular, right in our purchasing ordinance that every X number of years thou shalt do those types of things. So what happened last year is that you still had an agent of record, and I'm using this just as an example because I hope that it's helpful not only to clarify, but then also depending on what you want to do, maybe how I would say I would recommend you to move forward. What we did with Marsh last year is we had a different agent of record that still brought us over the finish line of getting our insurance. But when we did that, we said, and you guys all nodded and said, yeah, that's probably a good idea, is that we then went through a process where we went out to market and we built an RFP, we advertised that RFP, we interviewed and basically made then ultimately staff recommendations to you, and then you made a choice to either stick with, the professional service that we had in place, or in that case, you did change, right? I would not recommend at this point that you would postpone and not appoint or continue someone as of July 1. Probably technically, I suppose we could get away with that, but I think it's important that the charter probably talks more specifically about naming a particular person as being the city attorney. Additionally, I think what Dave and Jay were intimating at is probably more, what firm do we have? Because I think the memorandum, the letter from the city attorney, that was a conversation that Dave and I, quite frankly, had pretty extensively with Ron, is saying, okay, we're having one person that, even though that's maybe the face that you all see most often, from a staff everyday perspective, we're dealing with a whole bench of people from the organization that do different types of services on behalf of us. So I would say it this way: if you would want us to do an RFP and go through a process to go out to market and try that, I would say that is your ability to direct us to go ahead and do that. Absolutely. I would just say if you would make the decision to do that, I would probably say kind of do that on some type of a timeline, a little bit, quite frankly, with the other things that we've got going on, and building that into kind of our workflow. That's not an inappropriate thing to do periodically, absolutely, but yet I think then I'd be interested from a staff perspective to find out, like, do you want that done? On what timeline do you want that done? Because that's really kind of an in-depth RFP process where it's not just about naming one person as city attorney, which kind of meets the charter restrictions. Really, I think what you're talking about is going through a detailed process to say, okay, is there another firm that has a really bench of attorneys that could do this work on our behalf? Because it's symbolic tonight, right? Because there's a recommendation to kind of pass the torch maybe from a person to a person. I get that. Really, this is more symbolic of a bench of people that Ron addresses, and I'm sure he'd be willing to address in a moment, but he addresses in his memo that they've been preparing for this to make sure that they continue to have that bench strength in the different areas of expertise that, quite frankly, we and the BPW by extension needs from attorney services. So I just wanted to say that, not just to help bring more context and help with any deliberations that you might want to have.
Thank you. Any other discussion from council members? We have a motion on the floor to approve the recommended appointment of Vince Duckworth as the city attorney, moved and supported. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Coronado,
Yes.
Ernst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd, Peters, Corbin,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, I have two mayoral proclamations this evening. They are completely separate, individual, and stand on their own, but have a connection in regard to their both of them celebrating the people of Holland, Michigan. First is in regard to June as LGBTQIA+ Pride Month. Whereas nationwide, individuals who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, or asexual celebrate Pride Month each June. And whereas this month commemorates the events that took place more than 50 years ago at the Stonewall Inn in Manhattan, New York, on June 28, 1969, and is often viewed as the beginning of the modern LGBTQIA+ rights movement. And whereas LGBTQIA+ Americans have achieved significant milestones ensuring that future generations of people in the United States will enjoy a more equal and just society. And whereas despite extraordinary progress, LGBTQIA+ Americans still face discrimination simply for being who they are. And whereas the City of Holland cherishes the value and dignity of each person and is committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And whereas in passing City Ordinance 1784, the City of Holland provides protection of the rights of all persons against discrimination in employment, housing, public accommodations, or public services based on age, race, national origin, color, disability, education, familial status, sex, sexual orientation, gender expression, gender identity, height, marital status, religion, source of income, or weight. And whereas we value the cultural, civic, and economic contributions of the LGBTQIA+ community and acknowledge the work of Out on the Lakeshore and the PFLAG Holland Lakeshore, our first Lakeshore organization to support LGBTQIA+ people, their parents and families, and allies. And whereas it is imperative that all people in our community, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, feel valued, safe, empowered, and supported by their peers and community leaders. Now, therefore, I, Nathan Box, Mayor of the City of Holland, Michigan, and members of the Holland City Council, proclaim the month of June as LGBTQIA+ Pride Month. We urge residents to actively promote the principles of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging for all, and encourage participation in the annual Pride event on June 25, 2022, and other community events to show support for the LGBTQIA+ community during the month of June. Given under my hand and the seal of the City of Holland this June 15, 2022, Mayor Nathan Box. And the second proclamation this evening is in regard to June 19th to some proclamation, and 1863. Enslaved Americans in Galveston, Texas received word that they were free from bondage and were recognized for the first time as citizens equal in person and property rights with their former masters. And whereas, acting as the date of emancipation, June 19th became a long-standing day of celebration, known as Juneteenth, honoring African American resilience and the end of slavery and encouraging unity and respect for all. And whereas residents across our city and country join hands in acknowledging the centuries of struggle, courage, and hope, and the work of the abolitionists, teachers, civil rights advocates, attorneys, activists, public officials, and neighbors who have helped make real for all the principles outlined in our nation's founding documents. And whereas we acknowledge our history and work collaboratively to address systemic racism, remove barriers, and provide opportunity for all, and whereas the city recognizes the African American leaders and our African American brothers and sisters who have made indelible contributions locally to enrich our community and bring awareness around the community needs. And whereas the City of Holland stands in support of the I Am Academy and their and our collective work to empower African American adolescents to achieve their full potential by centering their identity, cultivating relationships, supporting educational success, providing college experiences, facilitating job readiness, and supporting educational readiness, ultimately changing the narrative and trajectory of our African American youth. And whereas we recognize we must recommit to work toward a greater accessibility. Now, therefore, I, Nathan Box, Mayor of the City of Holland, Michigan, and members of the Holland City Council, proclaim the City of Holland will observe June 19th as Juneteenth as part of the commitment to anti-racism, racial and social justice, encouraging reflection. Further, we encourage the community to participation at the Juneteenth celebrations on June 17 and 18 of the City of Holland, June 2020. That is all I have this evening. Appointments, motions, and communications from council members. Mr. Corbin.
Yeah, sure. I recommend that the City Council accept the appointment of Monty White to the Teen Court Advisory Board, rep from the Teen Court Advisory Board, effective February 17th, 2022.
What is the pleasure of council in regard to the recommended appointments?
Move we approve.
Moved by Hoekstra. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any other communications, motions? Yes, Mr. Hoekstra.
One last Ron, I'm sorry you didn't have an opportunity to say all kind of nice things that I'm sure were on your mind. But thank you for your years of service. You've led us through some interesting times and have done a good job of that, so thank you. Vince, looking forward to having you in a position that we can get as much. But wherever we write down things that the process of examining stuff here and not an anomaly or something that we have to have second thoughts about. It's good practice. As I've said before, you probably get sick of me saying that, but write it in stone, spray paint on the wall, whatever. Let's not forget to do that stuff. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other communications, motions from council members? Yes, Mr. Byrd.
Dave, I don't get tired of you repeating process because that's what makes things better, and most of the time make things worse if you don't follow them. I would recommend that we that technology that will accommodate us nowadays. So, so I got a few things to say. Some of this might be controversial, and I may end up upsetting some people, but that's okay. Juneteenth is right around the corner. That's a federal holiday in the United States commemorating emancipation of enslaved African Americans. It also often observed for celebrating African American culture. Originated in Galveston, Texas, celebrated annually on June 19th. President Abraham Lincoln Emancipation Proclamation was issued January 1, 1863. He freed the slaves. He freed the enslaved people in Texas and all the other southern secession states of the Confederacy, except for parts of states not in the rebellion. Enforcement of the proclamation generally relied upon the advance of Union troops. Texas, as the most remote state of the former Confederacy, had seen an expansion of slavery and had a low presence of Union troops as the American Civil War ended. Thus, enforcements remained legal in two states. Those two states were Delaware and Kentucky. Those enslaved people were freed with the ratification of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which abolished chattel slavery nationwide on December 6 in 1865. The last enslaved people presented in the continental United States were freed when the enslaved people held by an Indian tribe, Chattawa, had sided with the Confederacy, and they were released in 1866. Holland has come a long ways with black culture, I'll say. I Am Academy, as the mayor spoke about just shortly here in the proclamation, they're holding an event Friday and Saturday. And it includes music, 3-on-3 tournaments, festival and market. You can find more information on their website, which is iamacademymi.org. That's iamacademymi.org. So that's really cool. I'm excited about that and excited what they're doing for the community to celebrate our culture. One of the things for me, I would, I guess for a lack of better words, would, I don't want to say jealous, but I would be envious of Cinco de Mayo. I would be envious of watching the Hispanic community rally together and celebrate their heritage. So here we are, we have I Am Academy for the black community here in Holland, so excited about that. Now I want to get into some stuff that may be a little controversial to some, but at this point, I don't care. And I don't say I don't care because I could care less what you think. I think the urgency and the need outweighs that. Some time ago, we spoke about Holland being a welcoming community. And I was a voice that said, no, I do not want Holland to be welcoming to people, be a positive influence in this community. I do not want Holland to be welcoming drug people who are crime-ridden, drug addicts who fight like hell to get off and grips at times, to habitual offenders in a sense. Look at what happened the other day when we were 2 weeks ago today, after we were done with council, where we had an incident over by a young black man and critically injured a Hispanic young man. Now, when I say young man, I'm talking 19 years old. To share about my life and about a few people in my family. I have so there's a story. I'm from Saginaw originally, and in the house, and all of a sudden her front door busts open, and the dude just runs. Ran through her house, and they chased that dude down and killed him in the bathroom there. People were black. The mom in the house was black. 2 kids in the house were black. My sister, before she moved here, had a vacant lot next to her, and there was a car that sat in that vacant lot probably about on the street in front of that vacant lot for probably about 4 days. Come to find out, and she's come to find out there east in that whole time. They were shot and killed. Maybe not at that specific location, but they drove to that location and died. I've had 3 of my cousins bury their kids from guns, from being killed, and being killed by another black person. The oldest was 20, and then the next one was 17. He had just graduated high school, and then the youngest was 14. That's young, especially 14. Not even have driver's training yet, 14 years old, and you got to bury your child because they've been murdered. Our population in Michigan, in the United States is over 300 million. I'm a statistical person. I like stats. I love stats. I'm an engineer by trade, so the more data, give it to me. I eat it up. So I'm giving you a little bit of data because that's how I correlate things. So over 300 million people in the United States. The black population consists of 13.4% of the population in the United States. Violent crimes committed, 44% by black people. Homicides, 50% by black people. The offenders ages 20 to 29 equal 34%. And the victims, who are black as well, 20 to 29, that's 31%. So that's black on black crime. Offenders at the age of 10 to 19 equal 15%. The victims from ages 10 to 19, that's 12%. Those are not good numbers. And when I hear that, it's like, why? I have some answers, but I guess you guys ask yourselves those questions and see what those answers are that you come up with. Holland Police, you know, I was one of the first people to speak about the George Floyd incident when it happened. And it's sad. It's really sad. But this right here, this is sadder to me because it's touched my family on multiple occasions. And I've seen it ravage families. Our police in this community, in spite of what some people have said, they have made Holland a desirable place. I would say that's one of the highest ranking things in this community that has made Holland desirable for people to want to come here, live. At one time when I first lived here, we had a gang problem. And I don't recall people saying, I want to move to Holland, like I hear people saying that now. Or, I want to visit Holland, like I do now. They have done that in a professional way by purposely working in the community and eradicating crime with a plan. Some people say in this that they have made that they do a bad job or they're profiling black people in our community. One of the things that I do love about Holland PD that I have not seen in other communities is they purposefully go to the black community and try to build relationships. I think that's commendable. With the way things are today and them taking a step forward to try to build those relationships, that's awesome. Like I said, I don't see other communities doing that. That's huge. So wanted to share that. Since my time here in '96, when I first moved here in '96, I would see a black person probably, if I was lucky early on, maybe 6 times a year in Holland. 6 times a year out of 365 days. In 2010, the population of black people in Holland is 4%. 2020, it went to 5.9%. And I would dare to say it's probably a little higher than that now. I love it. I love going out. And almost every single time I go out in Holland, I see a black person. And I love it. Holland is one of the most welcoming communities that I have been in. And it's one of the loveliest communities I've ever been in. And to me, it's like, I wonder, where is the work being done to help young black men? I don't think it's BLM. BLM, to me, Black Lives Matter, is a damn joke. And it's been recorded, and they've said this. What I'm about to say is the money that they got that was supposed to go to the families who had been scarred forever, but it never did. It didn't go to them. Instead, it went to help them live a better or lavish life, the people who are associated with BLM. So no, don't like BLM, don't stand for their model. There's a lack of true male role models for the young black men who are in that 10 to 29 age range. Too much focus on police profiling them. And from the examples that I gave you just in my family, the streets are not a good teacher. I've been criticized by some people for my stance, for what I believe, because it differs from them, but I really don't care. I'm about real change. I'm not about just saying things. And people say, so when I went through the election process this last time, I had a few people asking me, well, what have you done for the black community? And I don't go out tooting my horn. I do what I need to do, and I help people. It's about helping people. It's not about going out with a megaphone saying, hey, look at me, this is what I've done. But just like I've told them, I started with my son. Me and his mom was divorced. I ended up losing my job. I had job offers in different states where I could have lived comfortably and been all right, but my son wasn't there. And I'd be damned if I'm gonna leave my kid to be another statistic. So that's where it starts for me, is I raised my son. Then coaching and mentoring. Youth group volunteer. I open my house up to these kids. I let them come in, they eat my food, they use my bathroom. They don't just take a leak in there. They make it stink in there. And if a kid can make your bathroom stink and it's not theirs, they must feel comfortable there. They must feel comfortable there. So that's my house. And then I've helped families get into Habitat for Humanity, black families, and I continue to do that because I had somebody open my eyes up to how awesome Habitat for Humanity is. And that's Lynn. Thanks, Lynn. So my question to all of you is, what are you doing and what are we doing as a community? What are we doing as a state? What are we doing as a country to help our young black men, stop committing genocide on our young black men? To me, that trumps everything else. That trumps trying to fund abortions. That trumps trying to talk about police profiling, talk about feeling welcoming. This needs to be addressed first, I believe, because if this isn't addressed, none of those other things will ever be talked about. And I'm tired of hearing my cousins cry and my family members cry and getting a phone call saying this young promising child in our community has died, or in our family has died, and now it's hit our community. I would have never thought it would hit our community, but it has. And it's become real to this community in a way that I would have never imagined, and I absolutely don't like. So my question is, what are you doing? What are we doing to help young black men stop killing each other? Thank you.
Thank you, Quincy. Any other comments, communications from council members? Mr. Corbin.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about process. This is our opportunity. This is our opportunity. Everyone here sitting around the dais as council members, this is our opportunity to talk and discuss things that we're thinking, and we're thinking that currently. Process, and for everybody to chime in on discussion. And a council member to my right, had some words during parts of council here, and wanted to know specifically, where do we have advice and consent? on some matters. And I guess what I would say is, there's an item on the agenda, there's a motion made, and discussions happen. That discussion is where we give our advice to the mayor, and our final decision is when we make a vote. Now, if we want to change that, and I'm all open to that, but we need to be more clear what we want as a board and what we want to communicate to the mayor as what is advice and what is consent. We need to define that a little bit more, and that means if we want to have more deliberation on an appointment, we should speak up now what that looks like. What does that look like? Is it in a study session? Is it a special board meeting or a closed session? Specifically when we're talking about an appointment of our attorney, what is that? And I think we need to be very clear right now, at this moment, what that looks like. You have an opportunity to do that and speak up. I'm very supportive of process, and I want to support the process, especially as Mayor Pro Tem. I want to make sure we're following that process. But currently, right now, the way it's written, the mayor did what was and has been part of practice. So if we want to change that, or if we want to add to it, I think right now is an opportunity for us to speak on the matter.
Ms. Coronado.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Yes, you're right. It's a time, now is the time to act. And being new, I would like to welcome those processes because, again, I said there is no playbook, and I lean on my colleagues who have more seasoned time, more experience, and so learning this, I would welcome a thorough process. But I don't want to burden the city and all their efforts. I mean, earlier I thought about after Keith summed it up better, and yes, we take pride in the great job they do, and I had just asked a few questions, and again, it's always, I was taught in school there was no dumb question, and so I hope that doesn't come across as challenging. However, learning is more at the end of those tools, opportunities. But again, respecting the process, not trying to burden anyone. And I appreciate, Keith has been doing this a while. Ron has been doing this a while. And again, I have a rapport with Vince, so I feel that we're in good hands. But in the future, I would welcome, to learn thoroughly, in depth, when the opportunity presents itself. I know we're on a short notice here, but again, as Dave said, so that we're not just taking things for granted. So thank you.
Yeah, so I guess I would say is we're not on short notice for the future. This is our opportunity right now to say what we want for the future. We have a number by charter and by board procedure policy. We allow the board, the mayor to make appointments. And again, by advice and consent, we approve. And we did that tonight with several other appointments. But we need to know where that threshold is. And certainly the attorney, our attorney, probably one of the two people that we have direct contact or responsibility, or they have direct responsibility to us, I think we take more seriously. I mean, it should be more serious when we deliberate on those two positions. So I would say in that regard is we should have more discussion about this. We should have more time to deliberate. I agree with my two colleagues that brought the issue forward. I just want to hear from the rest of you what your thoughts are on that, because that's only the three of us at this point. Or four of us, excuse me, I apologize.
Yeah. Lynn?
I agree. I think it would be helpful. It isn't something that I actually, and I really appreciate Dave bringing it up, because it wasn't something that I thought about. I think the idea of the mayor appointing gives me kind of the impression that the mayor has more of a say, or it's more your responsibility as opposed to our responsibility. And that's just the way that I interpreted it. So it's helpful to think about it in different terms, and I also understand that the city attorney it's more, I appreciate your explanation because it's clearly bigger than just sitting at the table and advising us when we need a legal opinion. It's a much bigger issue than that, because the whole city relies on this firm and not just the city attorney. So that said, I would be happy, would welcome a broader discussion when this comes around again, and to be able to just, have some more opportunity to assess. So, sure.
Quincy.
Yes, as I said, I agree with this. Talking format-wise, I think a study session would suffice, being able to sit and go through that. And again, it may come to the point where if we were to go through this process, or if we were to have gone through this process, like Dave said, tabled it or whatever, and the outcome's still the same, just because we may have that path, I won't say already picked, but it looks like it's going to that path. I think, again, it's a good exercise, right, to have that, because for me, I had totally forgotten. I remember doing something similar over the course of time, but I had forgotten all about it until you said something about it, jogging my memory, knocking the cobwebs off, I guess. So I'm for it. I agree with Scott that we have two individual positions that are under council, and it's those two as city attorney and city manager. But also stating that I don't think, and I can't speak for everyone, but I don't think the weight going into the city attorney would be the same weight as for the city manager. So, just my.
Any other comments, communications from council members?
Yeah.
Ms. Coronado and then Aaron Swartz.
Well, if I'm just going to add to that, I think Ron has been with us 40 years, and as Keith said, it's all of them serve, all the attorneys at Cunningham Dowman serve in a capacity. So with that being in mind, we do have a good reference, a good recommendation, right, Ron? So thank you. But may I add another, something else, or no?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to, being a woman veteran, the governor did sign a proclamation for June 12th, I'm sorry. I know I said July. But it was a bill from State Representative Julie Rogers out of Kalamazoo. It's a House resolution. And I'm going to say, being a woman who had proudly served her country throughout all periods, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and I'm joined with other veterans here, but me being a woman, there are currently more than 2 million women veterans living in the United States and Puerto Rico. Of this number, over 43,000 make Michigan their home. The Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, MVAA, was crucial in helping connect women to their identity as veterans, changing the public perception of what veterans looks like. Every year since 2018, partners, organizations, and MVAA have worked with the Michigan State Legislature to request a resolution for Women Veterans Recognition Day. Women Veteran Recognition Day is meant to raise awareness of the 43,000 plus Michigan women veterans who have served in the military while helping other women veterans come out of the shadows and proclaim their veteran status. So I, at this time, applaud Representative Rogers for recognizing the need to bring forth this resolution, and also for women veterans facing many challenges dealing with military sexual trauma, to inadequate health care and homelessness, and to raise awareness. For me as a veteran, I'm learning that veteran identification for anyone in general is hard. So we need to start asking the question, have you served or anyone in your family? Because there are vital resources for you and your family. So making that identification. But I just want to say June 12th, President Harry S. Truman signed into law 1948 in recognition of women being actually integrated into serving in the armed services. Before that, they had to hide their identity. So I'm grateful for those women who stood in the gap and continue to stand in the gap. So I'm grateful for that opportunity, and hopefully would ask that we can consider a proclamation for June 12th to be a day that we acknowledge for Women's Veterans Recognition Day in the future in the city of Holland. So thanks.
Thank you. Nikki?
Thank you for that. That was very interesting. Every time I think a meeting has gone on too long, you come up with something very interesting. I know about the appointment, I was not unhappy with the process. I thought it was a natural kind of transition. We've worked with Cunningham Dahlman, we worked with Andy, and then Andy Mulder, and then Ron, and then now Vince. But I do appreciate the history. Things have been different, and I'm not opposed to going through a different kind of process in the future when reappointment comes up. So, but I think this was not, I didn't think anything of it because I just thought it was a natural thing. Yes, it's boring to have Cunningham Dahlman again, but they do have the bench and the history with us. So I'm pleased with the way the vote went, but I do appreciate the history, and let's look at it perhaps differently, as everyone has said and has the experience with in the future.
Mr. Corbin?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I appreciate the comments I've heard from each of you, and that's what we want to do. We've expressed that on multiple occasions on our retreats, is to really hear from each other, and I appreciate your comments, and hopefully, I'll talk with the mayor, and we'll see if we can come up with an admirable solution to this. We'll also speak with city manager for some more important issues that might come before us, how we might want to address those, but we'll have some discussions, and then we'll get back with you. Or at least I can guarantee you I will get back with you. To Ron, thank you for your service, your dedication. I'm amazed at times when you've been able to pull out different legal opinions that you have. It's amazing how you dig into the facts, and I appreciate that because it's really helped us make really good, sound decisions for the city of Holland. We really welcome a Buckeye to our service. We're getting rid of a Wolverine, but we're gaining a Buckeye, so I'm really happy about that myself. So thank you very much.
Right. Mr. Byrd.
I have two questions. One, is it too late to revote?
The answer to that is yes.
And then, are we going to do something formal later on? All right. Okay. I'll save my comments for the both of you for that. Yes. And my comments probably have changed drastically for you. So.
All right. Any other? Oh, sorry, Quincy. Any other motions, communications from council members? There's just one more motion then that I would entertain at this point. Moved by Byrd, support by Peters. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.